Hello and good day, everyone. Welcome again to my YouTube channel. It's been a month or so since I've posted anything, but today we have a really great topic. Today I'm with Richard from Jade Sunrise Law, and today we're going to talk about the difference between resale contracts and new build contracts. But before we get started, Richard just has something to say about our conversation here.
All right, so quick disclaimer, today's conversation is just general information, not meant to be taken as legal advice. For legal advice, we would have to review your specific case, and you would have to get a lawyer. So
yeah, that makes sense. So let's get right into it. So we both know that resale for a purchase contract, which is essentially the offer, there are two different types. There are the resale contract, and then there is the new build contract, and there's a pretty big difference between the two of them. The regular resale contract is about 6 pages to start off with, whereas a new build contract is how big?
A few dozen pages.
A few dozen pages, yeah. And every builder has their own contract, right?
Exactly.
There's not a standardized form like there is with the resale.
Yes.
Yeah.
And those are usually drafted by the builder's lawyer.
Okay.
So whatever the builder kind of wants in there, whatever kind of terms, the lawyer can put it in there.
Yeah. Is that why it's so lengthy?
Yeah, that's part of the reason why.
Yeah. Well, let's touch on a few of the things that are different between the resale contract offer and, resale purchase contract and the new build purchase contract. Do you want to dive into, first of all, it's more in favor of the builder or the seller, where the regular resale purchase contract is a little bit more in favor of the buyer. It's a little bit more even,
I would say, yeah, if you're a buyer or a bit more balanced.
A bit more balanced, yeah. So what are some of the differences that you see on the lawyer end?
On the lawyer end, yeah. So one of the things to consider is if you're a buyer and you're doing financing, right, make sure you can get the mortgage on time. Because if there is a delay with the bank, if you don't have enough money on the closing date, a lot of the builder contracts, they'll say it's really up to the sole discretion of the builder to decide if there's late payment, whether they would accept it. Right?
Okay.
So even if they were to accept it, normally there's a term in the contract, there's going to be a late interest. And it's usually a lot more than your standard RECA resale contract. So with the resale one, it's the Alberta Treasury Bank prime rate plus 3% on like a per day basis, right? But with the builder's contract, it's 10-20%, upwards of 20%.
Wow.
Yeah, per day, right? Like on a per day basis. So like for a house that's like, or like a condo, let's say like 400,000-500,000, unpaid amount per day basis, you're paying like a few $100s every day.
Okay, so you definitely don't want to be late for that. And then is there a reason they could even just cancel the contract altogether?
Yeah, exactly. So that's the other thing, like especially in a market that favors the seller and you're late on your payment, if the builder is like, hey, I can put this back up on the market and get an extra 10K right now, why don't I just do that, right? Because based on the contract, they have the sole discretion. If you're late on payment, to just cancel the contract. So usually, well, maybe not usually, but sometimes what they'll do is say, you know what, we'll accept late payment. On top of the per day interest, we want another couple thousand.
Okay, right? Yeah.
Just because,
because
the market's favoring us right now.
Yeah, fair.
Yeah.
You had also mentioned a pretty big difference in contract for if you were to purchase like an investment property. Do you want to touch on that
for sure. Like I know a lot of investors, like real estate investors, they like new builds, right? Because new builds, like I guess the price is considered lower in market when you first sign the contract. Yeah. It's kind of a gamble, but a lot of times after it's finished, then you put it back on the market, you make a profit, right? But a lot of the times you have to be careful because in the contract that you're signing with the builder, there might be a right of first refusal or first purchase. So that basically means there's going to be a time length after you've taken possession, say usually 12 to 18 months, where if you were to put the house back on the market and try to sell it, you actually have to sell it back to the builder first for around 80 to 90% of the market value.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you really want to read the fine detail there.
Exactly.
Yeah. Especially if you're doing it with the intent of using it as an investment property.
Market, yeah, trying to make a profit. You kind of have to wait until that after a year or 18 months, then put it on the market. Right?
Yeah. That leads me into another question when it comes to investing. You mentioned that sometimes it's not written in the contract, or maybe it's written in and you just don't notice it when you're going through all these pages, that they have a property manager or somebody that will do the renting out for you.
Yeah, so a lot of these builders, they'll kind of offer as an option if you're doing investment property, and they'll say basically after closing, we're going to assign you a property manager and we'll rent it out for you, right? So it's guaranteed. Like, it sounds good because it's like guaranteed every month it's going to be like $2,000 coming into your account. But the thing is, if you're planning on selling this property within like a year, right? Say like the lease agreements for a year, or like that rental agreements for a year, and you want to sell it earlier than that, there's probably a term in that agreement that you sign saying that, hey, you probably have to provide some sort of compensation to the builder's manager, right, for canceling your agreement with them.
Because you did sign it in the contract somewhere on page, 62 or something.
Exactly. So it's important to be aware of those things when you're getting into these new builds, because there's a lot of like these fine details that are different from the normal resale contract.
Yeah. And another big difference is not so much with a condo, but more so with like townhouses or detached houses. It doesn't come with an RPR, so to speak. Yeah,
exactly. So some of them do, some of them don't. It depends on the contract, right? So for these new homes, or bare land condos, a lot of the times the contract will say, hey, the builder is not going to provide an RPR. It's something that you have to draw on your own later on when you want to resell it. Other times they'll say, we'll provide you the RPR, but we're not going to submit it to the city for compliance.
Okay.
Yeah, so you have to do that.
So you're
yourself.
only halfway there.
Yeah, exactly. So it's all up to the builder.
Yeah. Because normally with a resale property, anything that needs an RPR, you have to provide an updated RPR as per the resale contract.
Yeah, it's one of the closing documents,
right?
One of the fundamental closing documents.
Yeah, and they can cost upwards of $700-800 sometimes.
Exactly. Yeah, and if it's commercial property, it's like even more.
Yeah, of course. Lastly, occupancy date.
Okay, so with the occupancy date, these builder contracts, they'll usually say, you know what, we're going to give you notice, 30 days notice, right? This is going to be our occupancy date, but the builder reserves the right to either accelerate it or delay it without any liability to the builder, right? So that's something to keep your mind on. If you want to have like a plan that you want to move in, but it could change at any moment's notice, right? The other thing is, we've seen this before, there's some contracts where they offer like an interim occupancy. So normally with like a new build, you have to have like the condo plan, the units registered before closing. But sometimes what the builders will do is they'll say, hey, even before all this is in place, if we set the occupancy date to be this date, you have to take possession, even if we don't have all our documents ready. Right? And then you have to take it and you kind of have to pay us a rent, like an occupancy fee.
So basically your hands are tied.
Yeah, exactly. So that's something to be aware of.
Okay. I think those are all some really great key points and differences in a new build contract, condos or detached or whatever property may be, versus a regular resale contract. So thank you for those points. So I guess the moral of the story is,
get a lawyer to review your contract before you sign it. Yeah. So these bills, they'll say both parties have had the chance to seek independent legal advice. So if later on there's an issue during closing, you say, "Hey, I didn't know about this," but the contract said you've had a chance to get a lawyer.
Yeah.
So,
and it says that in the resale or resale purchase contract as well. But I feel in this particular case, especially if you go unrepresented without a realtor, then I definitely think it's worth spending the time and money and having the contract reviewed by your own independent legal advice.
Exactly.
Richard, thank you so much for this really great information. No, I appreciate your time so much and your insights.
Thank you, Ilona.
You're welcome.